And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to welcome tonight Rea Frey, here to tell us about her brand new red hot book, Secrets of Our House. Rea, welcome to Mystery and Thriller Ravens. Tell us about this book.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here. Okay, so Secrets of Our House is a little bit of a departure from my previous books. It's known as a domestic drama instead of a domestic suspense, but it's really about a very successful businesswoman named Desi who has built her dream getaway house called the Black House, which is in the North Carolina mountains. And she really just wants to have a lovely summer with her husband, Peter, and her daughter, Jules, before her daughter goes off to college. And when they get to the Black House, everything starts to unravel. Her marriage is on the verge of divorce. Her daughter falls in love for the first time and wants to ditch college and play house with him in the wilderness in the Black House. And then Desi's past literally comes knocking on the door of the Black House and threatens to reveal all these secrets that she's tried so hard to keep. So it really kind of delves into family dynamics and the secrets we keep and how it can all unravel in this big, beautiful container known as the Black House.
Ooh, well, I cannot wait to hear every delicious detail. And we are going to get in it. So first, I just want to welcome everyone. So we are streaming live to 6 different destinations across Facebook and YouTube. So no matter where you're watching from, you're in the right place. This is the right time. If you've been here before, you know how this goes. If you're new, welcome. We're thrilled to have you. Here's how it goes. Every Monday for hashtag Mystery Monday, I give you my handpicked featured authors and you get to ask them anything. So ask Rea about her writing process, about this departure into domestic drama, about her business, helping others get published, secrets she's learned about this industry. We're going to get into it. Get them going in the comments. I want to remind you, if you're watching from a private Facebook group, Facebook has strict privacy settings, so you have to give permission for us to see your headshot. I am popping into the group myself. This is Georgina Cross.
Georgina, hi.
Hey, Rea.
Last night.
Yay. And she said, Rea, you're in your favorite yellow color and always styling with those earrings. And I was noticing those as well. So Rea, tell us about this outfit. Who are you wearing? Who are you wearing?
It's funny. Georgina Cross, who's an incredible author, we had an event last night and one of the questions was, what is your favorite color? And lately it's been yellow because it's such a fun color. But all the earrings I wear are from a local shop. I'm in Nashville, but it's a friend of mine, Erica. Every single piece of jewelry is handmade from women in Africa. And she just goes and collects and brings back. And it's a really, really lovely mission and lovely shop.
Well, you are styling. Georgina Cross, an amazing author in her own right. So great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for the props on Rea's style there. Debbie, welcome to the conversation. She says, Rea, I love your backdrop, and can we see your big ring, please?
Yes, another local shop. It's called Still House Apothecary. Also handmade locally, which I love. And then I'm in my husband's studio because my writing studio doesn't have internet on purpose. So he's an artist, and so he does fashion and all this stuff. So he has a graffiti wall behind me that he did with his graffiti pen
that says create.
And the other side says write on it. I should probably be sitting on that side, actually.
Oh my God, that's so cool. Debbie, thanks for noticing that. I actually didn't, I mustn't, I need glasses. So I was like, what does that say?
I know.
It looks so cool. George Beach, welcome to the conversation. He says, I am watching from Murder by the Book this time, my most favorite store with the fabulous McKenna, John, Brenda, Sally, and I think one other. Good evening, George. How cool that you're watching from in-site on the store as we do this special event in collaboration with the store. So we love having you on site. You can be our man on the street or our man in the store, so to speak. All right, everybody, let us know what questions you have for Rea. And I want to remind y'all that this book is available today. So go ahead and grab it and support our favorite woman-owned bookstore, Murder by the Book, where George is hanging out, broadcasting live from there. And I'm going to pop the link right here in the comments. So grab your copy tonight. And here it is. So Rea, let's talk about the process of bringing this book from the first. Where did the idea come from, and then let's walk through how long it took you to getting that book in your hands.
Yeah, so this was funny. I wrote this book 2 years ago, actually, at the start of the pandemic, and my publication date was pushed. It was supposed to come out last summer and wasn't, which is absolutely fine. I think it was nice to have a little bit of extra time. But this book really started with The Black House. My friend Emily Carpenter, who's another great author, she actually lives in the house that is in this book. I went and visited her and was just so taken by her house. I was like, this has to be a setting in somebody's book. So I'm going to do it. So I went home and started writing this book, but then we all went into quarantine. So it was really easy to imagine this family isolated in this big, beautiful house, because I was isolated with my family, not in a big, beautiful house like The Black House, but it was really cool to put myself in that situation, the same situation essentially as my characters.
Wow, very cool. Okay, so you started writing it in spring 2020, and then how long did it take you to revise it? How many rounds of revision did you do? Walk us through it, soup to nuts.
Yeah, so I'm a annoyingly fast writer. I tend to write my books in like 1 to 3 months. And then it's just
Wow.
it's just because I have to. I run a business and my writing is like very condensed into tiny buckets of time. So the first iteration of this book was a total thriller. There was murder, there's suspense. I thought, I've nailed it. My editor's gonna love it. And I turned it in and she was like, yeah, cool. Rewrite this, because she really wanted me to stretch a little bit outside of the typical suspense or thriller genre and create more of a family dynamic, a family saga, this drama, because that's kind of where I'm headed in my writing. So I had to essentially revise it, not completely rewrite it. And again, that was pretty fast turnaround time as well.
Why did she want you to revise it? What was missing for her?
So in my contract as in with St. Martin's Press, I am actually a women's fiction author with suspenseful elements. So as a writer, I think she really wanted me to push a little bit more that way versus the other way, and just try my hand at something a little bit different. I tend to write somewhat emotional characters. I don't ever write just like strict whodunits or mysteries, but I really love to kind of to make the reader feel something with these characters, even if I write pretty unlikable characters at times. So it was fun. Again, this was different for me. The setting is really a character. There's a lot more action than I typically write. This takes place in the wilderness. So it was fun to stretch in that way.
And what is the thing that you want readers to walk away having felt as after spending time in your pages?
Yeah, I mean, I always love that question. I love the conversation to keep going, or for the characters or just the story itself to stick with a reader long after they've put the book down, and just to keep thinking about it. It's not really with this one. I think the theme is like, how well do we ever really know the people that we live with, that we love, that we think, are people? Do we really know them, or could they possibly be holding some pretty crippling secrets? So that's one of the questions I wanted people to ask, but I really just want stories to stick with readers long after they're done.
I love that. So as someone who lives with other people,
Yes.
your husband, your daughter, do you feel you know them? Do you feel that they have
Yes.
secrets?
Oh, I know. So my husband is the worst liar on the face of the planet. He's never been able to lie. We've been together 12 years and never once. He's one of the most honest, kind, just very open, men that I've ever met. So he does not have secrets. And my daughter is a perpetual truth teller. She also cannot lie. So I think I'm the secretive one. Not that I have secrets, but I know how to put on a face and keep things. But I'm again, ask them. I'm an open book. I'm very honest. I tell the truth, even if people don't want to hear it. So we're all pretty open and honest in this household.
It is an interesting question, though, to think about the secrets that people hold, because you often hear these crazy stories about, the husband will die and his second family comes to the
Oh,
funeral and everyone's like, what? And so there, we think that we know people, but I think it continually surprises me how much people hide. It's definitely an area of fascination. Debbie, welcome to the conversation. Steffi, Evan, Shannon, Donna, Jess, welcome, everybody. If you have any questions for Rea, let us know. George is clarifying. He's not actually at the store. He's just in the store speed, but still is great. Okay, George, I thought you were doing man on the street reporting from aisle 5 or something over there, George. Melissa is saying, good day, Sara and Rea from Australia. Melissa, welcome back. Always a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. Rea, let's talk about this. So, Booklist named you a rising star on the suspense scene. So, you're saying that you describe this book as domestic drama, and yet Booklist deeming you a rising star on the suspense scene. So clearly you do suspense well. What do you think the secret is to writing a really suspenseful, page-turning book?
Yeah, I think a lot of times people think suspense equates to something really sinister happening, or yeah, there's some sort of murder or missing person or this or that. And sometimes I think it's more just about anticipation, keeping what a character really wants from them, and really having the reader invest in the character as well as the plot, and the character's growth and evolution as well as the plot. So yeah, sometimes I think it's more about anticipation than making these certain things happen at specific periods of time. And just that age-old question of like, what's going to happen next? I think if you can hook a reader and keep them turning pages, that is suspense, even if it's not in the quote unquote suspense genre.
Ooh, that's interesting. How do you get to what it is that you think a character wants? Do you journal about it? Do you talk to them? Do you hear them talk to you? Do you plot it out? What's the recipe on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I feel like I process more here than I know so many writers that have like 10 pages of character traits and where they're going to go. And
Yeah.
I'm not really like that. Everything kind of lives in my head, and I take lots of walks without technology. I do a lot of my writing process on those walks in my head. And then when I sit down to write, I really just kind of know where I'm going. But my characters really do come to me as fully fleshed humans. And I don't necessarily talk to them, but I can figure out their pain points, their triggers, what it is they need. And then with most stories, I see the end first and kind of figure out how it's going to end, and then weave and work my way backward.
Did you see the end in this one first?
Well, the end was very different. I mean, it was very dramatic and kind of left on a cliffhanger because it was more of a thriller. So when I was reworking it, my editor's always really wanting like, okay, these people have been through enough, like give them some semblance of a happy of a happy-ish ending. So I knew that it was going to come full circle in some regard, even if it wasn't all buttoned up and tied nicely in a bow. I always like to write. I want people to recognize themselves in these characters, and it to be somewhat realistic. So even if everything doesn't work out perfectly, it's semi-realistic in how it might go in the real world.
Oh, very cool. George is saying you're a new author to him. He just checked out your webpage and your books look like really great reads. He can't wait to check them out. And your earrings are amazing on your page. Okay, now I have to go. I went to your page. I didn't see the earrings. I have to go back and do a better comb through. George, thank you so much for checking that out. Everybody, I want to remind you to grab your copy of the book. I'm going to put that in the link as well, in the comments as well. Rea, let's talk about, so you're not only a published author, you help others get published. Tell us about that.
Yes. So I feel like it's just my duty as an author to help other authors navigate this crazy, crazy landscape of the publishing world. So I've been working with authors almost for 20 years as a ghostwriter, as an editor, developmental editor, copy editor, proofreader, whatever they need, I would always help, or pitching agents or writing query letters. And I did that on the side for a long time. And it kind of just naturally grew into this business. And at the top of 2020, right before the pandemic hit, I created Writeway, my company, Writeway, WRITEWAY, where writers come, they want to get published. Most of them want to get traditionally published. Most of our clients are mainly nonfiction authors. And I thought when the pandemic hit, I was like, this is the dumbest thing ever. Like, my husband quit his job. To come be the creative director. We were all in, and it just kind of took off on its own. And within 2 years, the last 2 years, we've had over 65 first-time authors land agents and major book deals. And many of our #1 best-selling authors. And it's wild.
Wow.
Like, wild. This is why I have no time to write, because our book proposals, when we're working with nonfiction authors, you sell a book based on a book proposal and not the book itself. But our book proposals are around 100 pages. They're very in depth. They cover so many different elements, and it's a huge undertaking. But then we take that proposal, we edit it, we proof it, we design it, and then we curate an agent list of people we know and trust, and or an editor list, and we pitch for these authors. So they're getting their foot in the door, and they're actually going to have someone read their work. It's not going to go to a slush pile, and it's not just going to sit there. And it's not a guarantee of publishing, but we're very, very particular about how we match people. So our clients are kind of with us until they do get a yes. We also work with self-published clients, though, who a lot of people want to bypass the traditional model completely. They don't want to wait 2 years. They don't want to give away their rights and money and time. And so we do help with that as well. We'll do cover design and formatting and editing, and help them usher their work out into the world as well. So it's just been insane. And during that time, we also created a podcast called The Real Story that demystifies the publishing industry and really tells people everything they need to know that no one is going to tell them.
That's fabulous.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
So everybody, I'm putting the link to both Rea's website, which is right here, reafrey.com. So click over there. It's in all of the comments, no matter where you're watching from. You can check her out, all that she's up to. And then to learn more about Writeway, here's the link to that. So you can click over to Writeway and learn about that. And then one more time, could you say the name of your podcast?
It's called The Real Story.
The Real Story. Okay, perfect. I'm going to put a link to that as well.
Writewayco.com too. Like, everything exists. We don't advertise with social media. We're totally old school, word of mouth. So everything kind of exists on our website.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm going back to the website. Okay, here is a link to the podcast as well. So here's the podcast. So 65 authors in 2 years. That's amazing.
Insane.
What do you think what do you think, does that show a hunger in the market? Does that show a need for this? What do you think what do you think it's saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people at the beginning of 2020 were like, I want to write a book. And if I don't write it now, I'm not going to write it. And so when you're working with nonfiction authors specifically, you're not working with authors really. These are business leaders, they're CEOs, they're execs, they're experts in their field. They're people who really need a book to legitimize their brand or business.
Okay.
And so we're very choosy about what we take on, and I don't take on a project unless I really think it can sell. But I mean, books are still selling, and with a lot of changes in publishing and people reaching more for digital copies, there is a place for everyone. You can get published if you want. That's what I love about today's landscape. You 1000% can become a published author. It's just figuring out your goals, what publication path is right for you. So I think that's just a testament to us taking our time to goal set and figure out what's right for the author and then help lead them in that path so they have the best chance for success.
Oh, I love that. So it's so cool that you're not only writing your own books, but helping other people to tell their stories and write their books as well. Back to your writing, Publishers Weekly said of Until I Find You that this was an emotional roller coaster that satisfies. What do you think the key to writing both an emotional roller coaster and a satisfying book? Because I think nothing alienates a reader more than walking away thinking I didn't quite get what I needed.
Completely.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think again it goes back to me it's just the character development and what happens in the arc of that character's story. I think you can have the best plot in the world, but if your protagonist doesn't change in some way or they don't go on some sort of journey, that book in particular, Until I Find You, which is about a blind widow who thinks her 3-month-old son has been swapped for another baby, and no one in her community will believe her. So this woman, Rebecca Gray, she goes on a complete emotional roller coaster, and it's very, very cyclical. So I think, again, having it end in a place where you're not left with a ton of questions and the reader walks away feeling like they went through this with her and they do feel satisfied at the end. I think it's just, again, about trying to hit all those points in the storytelling.
Excellent. I like thinking of it as hitting points and also thinking of the character as not just telling that moment in the story, but that moment as part of a larger arc. Because I think that's sort of zooming out, stepping back and thinking about that a little more strategically. Georgina would like to know, can you talk about what you are working on next? Tell us about your next project.
Yes, Georgina, she knows what I'm working on next. So speaking of emotional, this new book that I have, it's totally women's fiction with romance themes. But it's like, in my mind, it's the book that I've wanted to write probably close to 20 years, but it's called The Other Year. And it's about a mother and her 9-year-old daughter, Kate. And they go to the beach every year. It's Kate's birthday. They celebrate mother-daughter. And the daughter goes in the ocean. The mom is standing on the beach. She looks down for a second at her phone and looks up, and her daughter's gone. And the book splits into two like sliding doors timelines where we follow the mother in the year, a year of her life where her daughter unfortunately drowns and dealing with the aftermath of that. And in the other storyline, her daughter lives. And the whole point of the book is to see, do we end up where we're really supposed to be even when tragedy strikes? Or does that tragedy send us somewhere else entirely? So I used my 9-year-old daughter for this as like just inspiration for this character and all her little quirks and idiosyncrasies. And I mean, I literally have cried more writing this book than I ever have in my life, because it's just been to put myself in a mother's grief like that. It's my worst nightmare. It's every mother's worst nightmare to lose your child in some way. So, it's a real uplifting novel, but at the end of the day, it is a story of redemption and resilience, and it's been a blast to write. It's my favorite book that I've ever written, but it's also been the hardest.
Melissa saying, wow, that sounds fascinating. Melissa, thank you. Rea, I'm intrigued that you said it's the book that you've wanted to write for 20 years, but your daughter is 11. So you wanted to write this your daughter's 9. So you wanted to write this for 11 years before you had her. Why have you wanted to write this book for 20 years?
No, not this book. Just the type of book, not the subject matter of the book, but just a book that when I'm done with it, I feel like I've kind of put everything on the table, like a book that I can say, I wouldn't want to change anything about that book. I love that book, because as authors, we don't talk about that a lot, but the book you see right now was written 2 years ago. And I'm someone who writes a book, moves on, done, And so what the readers are experiencing is something that we have written years ago, and we're already moving on. Our style might have changed. We might have evolved as a writer. But this is the first book that I, when you flip through your own book, you're like, ooh, I changed this, after it's published. And this feels to me like the type of book that I will walk away from and be really, really satisfied with it.
Melissa would like to know, that must have been very confronting having a daughter of your own. Let's talk about that. So yes, facing a mother's worst fear, watching her child drowned.
Yes.
How did you get in there mentally?
Yeah, I actually talked to a lot of paramedics, and I mean, I went through the whole process of like, okay, this is, we go to the beach every year. I got the whole idea for this book when we were at the beach last year, and my daughter was in the water, and I was watching her, and the book came to me from start to finish. And so, yeah, just having to put myself in that position and really putting myself in that reactive place, like what would you do, and what do you do, and how does it even work, and how would you live, and how do you go on with any sort of purpose in your life? And I have an editor who's working on it, and she gave me the best compliment today. And just like, after reading this book, I'm now looking at my own mothering and trying to stay in the present moment and trying to be with them, because just like that, it can all change.
Yeah. And I think staying in the present moment is such a struggle for all of us, always, because we live in a very fast-paced,
Yes.
Very attention dividing, multitasking world. And especially when there is so much uncertainty out there in that world, with a global pandemic, with a war in Russia and in Ukraine, it's hard not to worry about the worst outcome. It's hard not to think negative, terrifying, anxiety-inducing, crippling thoughts. Rea, as a wellness fiend, how do you do it yourself, or can you?
Oh, yes, I can, and I do, and it's the thing that I'm probably the most proud of. At the beginning of 2020, when all of this started, my husband and I made a decision to only feed information into our brains that was going to add value, that was going to calm us, that was going to serve us in some way. Because I think if you tune into the narrative and just the fear and just all the bad things that we hear on the news, which is the purpose of the news, it doesn't bring us all the good things that are going on in the world. It can be crippling, and it can be so fear-inducing that you can literally change your own physiology just with the way that you're thinking and reacting in that fight or flight response. So we have just really tried to create an environment for ourselves and our daughter that is so proactive when it comes to health, that is really taking care of us mentally, physically, emotionally. We meditate, we have a breathwork practice, we really sit and talk, we journal, we just really have leaned into, I don't know, all that's good and all that's going right and all that might come from this. Because our thoughts are the only thing we can control in all of this uncertainty. So I think if you can get your mind right around this, and that doesn't mean living in la la land and pretending none of this is happening, but
right,
really deciding what you want to believe and how you want to feel. And it's been life-changing over the past 2 years. Like, I've actually been very grateful for the time and space to figure out, what do I want to pay attention to, and how do I want to feel on a day-to-day basis, and what information do I want to let into my little bubble.
Yeah, that's something that I struggle with, is how to stay informed about world events and what's going on, but also protect my mental peace. And it's a balancing act. It is hard.
Yeah,
absolutely. Melissa saying, that is wonderful. It's hard to be positive with so much to be concerned about. Melissa, I'm certainly feeling the same way. It's really hard, because the world is hard right now, especially hard.
It is. We've kind of created a compound at our house. Like, I bought a tiny home for my writing studio. We converted our garage to a gym. We bought a sauna. I'm like, cool. We're kind of like creating a compound. If things get really bad, we can just exist here without having to go there. So we've kind of had some fun with it, but also really thinking, and also in this book, there's a lot of like survivalist elements and themes to the book. And it's like, do we know how to take care of ourselves? Would we be able to have our own food? And water and like know what to do if things got really, really bad, because I think we've stepped away from that side of our humanity and knowing how to be human and taking care of ourselves on that, the most fundamental levels. We click a button on Amazon and things are like magically delivered to our doors every day. So it's been interesting to think about that side of things too.
Absolutely. Debbie sharing, she's been struggling with that balance too. Debbie, thank you for letting me know that, and you are not alone. I'm right there with you. I have decided to do a fundraiser for the people of Ukraine. So I'll be teaching yoga meditation on Wednesday night, and everyone is invited. So we're going to raise some money for Razum Ukraine, for the people of Ukraine. More on that to come tomorrow. Tonight we're talking mysteries, and let's get back to it. Rea, Booklist says that your books bring to mind Jodi Picoult, thought-provoking domestic drama. So hashtag goals. That's
yeah. I remember when that they said, I was like, wait, what? I don't like it.
Exactly. I'd like to thank the Academy. Someone get her a mic.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what I think people connect with Jodi's work so deeply with is the humanity of her characters, the realness of it, and the rawness of what she's willing to go to these dark places, as you are also writing about difficult subject matter, writing about painful things that scare us. The loss of sight, the loss of a child, loss, fear, danger, these deeply primal activating things. When you sit down to write this, how do you bring that into being?
Yeah, I love that question. I have always been interested in our minds and how we, I was a journalist on death row for many years. I worked on 3 different death row cases, very up close and personal, like murders. And I would find myself digging into their story and figuring out, like, how do we all go from these innocent little babies to making decisions or being shaped by society or our environment to make one decision that fundamentally changes your life forever. And the more time I spent with these people and learned that they are humans too, and they've made monumental mistakes in their lives, but I've always been very interested in that, and just like the human condition and the mistakes that we make and how we could go this way or this way. And we just straddle that line, and it would be so easy to tip over and do something that you never thought that you could do and lose your freedom for the rest of your life. And so I don't know, when I sit down to write anything, I always channel some of those conversations with some of those people and really think about just the whole human experience as we know it. And then, yeah, just try to talk about some of the things that we always don't like to discuss, but the stuff that interests me is just like what makes us flawed and what makes us us.
Anissa is saying hello from South Carolina. Anissa, welcome to the conversation. So Anissa is a member of Mystery and Thriller Mavens. She actually is one of my moderators. She's an amazing bookstagrammer. She does a lot with Friends in Fiction. Last seen doing Instagram lives with Jenna Bush Hagar. She does a lot of cool stuff. Anissa, it's also Anissa's birthday. So happy birthday, Anissa. May the words and wine flow freely, and not necessarily in that order. Anissa, birthday girl, do you have any questions for Rea? I think we have time for one more. She's saying, wow, that is so very interesting. 3 years on death row. She says, thank you for the birthday wishes. Anissa, do you have any questions for Rea as the birthday girl? Let us know. Rea, let's talk a little more while Anissa's taking a moment to think. Let's talk a little bit more about the death row coverage. I just hosted Sarah Weinman, who's the New York Times book review crime columnist, whose book Scoundrel just came out, the true crime about Edgar Smith, the murder of the 15-year-old girl in New Jersey. And I really, that's a world I know nothing about. Death row is a world I know nothing about. What did you learn that has informed your writing there?
Yeah, I mean, the first case that I worked was a horrible one in Clinton, Illinois. It was a white mother and her black boyfriend, and the white mother had 3 children, and they all drowned one night. And the mother and the boyfriend were convicted, and it was a death penalty case. And what I witnessed in that town, this very, very white town, the level of racism, the level of hatred towards this man, which I think they were both absolutely innocent. There was zero evidence. It was like a horrible, horrible accident. So I really learned so much just about the legal system. If you don't have money, if you don't have the right representation, if you're not in the right town, your life can just be changed, just like that. And then a man named Steve Henley, who was executed, unfortunately, he was on death row for 26 years, again, maintaining his innocence. But just, I remember the first time I stepped in death row, I mean, I was like, oh my God. And I remember stepping inside, and he wasn't in handcuffs. He was sitting knee to knee with me and was like, put his hand on my knee and was just like so electric. And I was like, am I just here by myself? But the more I got to know him and his story before this act, before this even happened, I think what I've just learned is that, we never know someone's complete story, and we will never know what really happened. And it's interesting how many people cling to innocence and saying they're innocent and really having to believe that, I think, to even survive. So it always kind of percolates in the back of my mind. Just, we never truly know someone else's story.
That is fascinating. What was fascinating about Scoundrel is that this guy was wrongfully acquitted. So a reverse case of reverse case of wrongful imprisonment. So most people are like your person who is wrongly accused, wrongly convicted. It's never overturned, and maybe they're put to death. This guy was convicted. The case was overturned. He was let go, and he went right back into his murderous ways on a rampage. But it's also about those same issues: racism, classism. If he had not been a white guy who
100%.
could speak in the way that certain white advocates wanted to hear and wanted to see, that would never have happened for him.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
George would like to know, have you read Sister Mary Prejean's I'm probably saying that wrong and I apologize, Dead Man Walking? I saw her in person.
No, I actually have not, surprisingly. So I will pick that up.
He said it really got him thinking about that subject. It was signed by her and Sister Susan Sarandon. What a wonderful interview. Oh my gosh, George, that's so cool. Wow, what an incredible opportunity. Let me just scroll down here, make sure I'm not missing anybody's questions. I love this idea that we never know someone's complete story. Fascinating. And that will stay with me. I'll be thinking about that a lot. Well, y'all, we are over our time. So I just want to say thank you, Rea, so much for being here with us on Mystery Monday. Thank you, everyone who tuned in, wherever you're tuning in from. Paula, Judy, Irma, Betty, Christine, Tanya, Jane, Sharon, Ron, Mark, Tara, Stacy, Jess, Donna, Shannon. So great to have you. Thank you for tuning in and watching with us. Oh, thanks for all the hearts on Facebook, you guys. It has been a pleasure to host you, Rea, and we look forward to having you back when your next book is out.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure.
Have a great night, everybody. I will see you next week for Mystery Monday, because Mondays can be murder.